Shalom, shalom, shalom. Welcome to another installment of Angry News Updates. Priest and Captain Soccer War with the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge under Commander General Yohana, coming to y'all live from Memphis, Tennessee. Some of you, of course, know me as Chief Sock G of Angry Black Man Media. And I wanted to come to y'all with another one of these updates concerning everything that's going on right now with the government and to bring you the perspective of um, the angry black man that is not partial to either the liberal or the conservative viewpoint. You tune in the mainstream media, everything that they're presenting to you on the news is presented to you from a biased standpoint. Whether you tune into the liberal media, which is MSNBC, CNN, or if you're tuning into conservative media, which is the Fox News programming, everything that they're going to tell you concerning these news stories and what's going on in the government right now is going to be presented to cater to an audience that supports either side of that coin. And what I wanted to do is go through these news stories and to read between the lines and to help our people understand exactly what this battle and this fight is about that's taking place in Washington and really worldwide right now, and what implications there are for us as a people. It has long been the stance of the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge that the political goings-ons of America have nothing to do with the benefit or the progression of blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. Our path towards prosperity and towards freedom and towards independence has nothing to do with um, the politics of our oppressor. Only way that we are going to have a sustainable future where we progress and where we advance the goals that we have for ourselves as a people is if we separate from this system, gracefully bow out of the game of the politics that they play, and seek to establish our own uh, uh, method of operations when it comes to establishing a community, establishing a society, and building a government for ourselves. You look around the planet right now, all the lines are being drawn in the sand between these various nations, and the only people who do not have a governmental structure that they can go to for some solitude and for some solutions and some answers are so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. And since 1969, that is exactly what we have been building in the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. And so the answers and the solutions for our people in this times are coming from Commander General Yohana out of the book called the Bible. And until we return to that path and return to that knowledge and that wisdom and understanding, we're going to be in darkness and swallowed up by the whims of our oppressor. And so that's what these live streams are about. These live streams are about going through all of the current events and the news stories and presenting the perspective that's important and necessary for our people to be able to grow and to be able to find our way through all the confusion, right? So the last stream I did was concerning um, the moves that were made in the Department of Justice following Donald Trump passing down the order to dismiss the case against Mayor Eric Adams in New York City. And that order was met with resistance from the attorney generals in New York City and several members of the Department of Justice's, basically like their internal affairs portion where they review cases and to make sure there's no funny stuff going on. When Donald Trump passed down an order to dismiss the case against Eric Adams, two New York attorney generals resigned in protest. And then when they passed the case to Washington, to again that in the internal affairs department, four additional lawyers resigned because they would not have no parts of the dismissal of Eric Adams' case, even though it was said pretty plainly in the letters from the attorneys in New York that the reason why they were resigning is because Donald Trump had put in place a quid pro quo uh, uh, deal with Eric Adams that they would let him stay out of jail if he allowed for their immigration program to go through in New York, which included allowing federal workers to establish a base in Rikers Island for the deportation of immigrants. Prior to that, I talked about the budgetary implications of what's going on with the Department of Government Efficiency and Elon Musk and the goals that they seek to accomplish there. And I talked about how even before COVID, the financial crunch that we are experiencing in this country was already on the horizon. If you go back pre-COVID, there was a trade war going on with America and China. China was threatening to call in the debt that America owed. The U.S. dollar was weakening in strength and losing its value. A lot of jobs were grinding. A lot of companies were losing profits, and it was a bad forecast for the economic times that the Western world was in for the coming years. And COVID hit, kind of staved that issue off for a while. But now that we're back somewhat to getting normal in terms of where things are societally, the problems that we staved off 6 years ago because of COVID are rearing its ugly head back again. And so we're back to where the dollar is losing its value. America is in a very vulnerable position financially, and something drastic needs to be done in order for the game not to be to fall apart in terms of the money game that's being played with the Federal Reserve System. And so, with the Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk is being used as the fall guy for why things are so bad in America. Him going through gutting all of these different government programs, talking about all of the corruption and the misappropriation of funds that they're finding and they're discovering. It's a good talking point, but the reality is there is no money to pay all of these workers to fund all of these programs. And rather than just say we don't have any money, the system, America is fallen. They're going to present it as though we have to make these drastic cuts in order to continue the country running. And so while there's a lot of people right now that are up in arms about Elon Musk and they're getting distracted and caught up in everything that's going on with him making all of these department cuts, I just wanted to go through and just show you how a lot of this stuff is just smoke and mirrors, right? So the mainstream media isn't really reporting it as far as I can tell. But yesterday, there were thousands of people protesting in Washington, D.C., very close to the White House. You see right there on the ground to the Capitol about Donald Trump and about what's going on right now with the Department of Government Efficiency. And I'm going to say this, the big issue right now that's taking place is that um, the only vestige of middle class guarantee that exists today is federal jobs. Like in the 70s and the 80s, being able to get a federal job was like making it into the middle class. If you worked for the federal government, if you had a federal job, then you were good for life, set for life. You got a job in the government, as long as you don't mess it up, man, you're gonna be good. You're gonna make enough money to be able to buy your house, be able to own some property. You'll be able to get cuts for this and for that because you work for the federal government. Well, COVID did a lot to erase the middle class in this country. It very much increased the wealth disparity between the richest and the poorest in this country. And a lot of those jobs that were considered middle class got erased, right? So, right now in America, the only guaranteed middle class job that you could have is one where you have a trade, meaning you're an electrician, you're a plumber, you're, IT guy. You work with computers well, and you work with AI and those different types of software programs, or you work for the federal government. And so what we see taking place is with the layoffs of all these federal workers is another shot at eroding the middle class in this country. And so I'll read a little bit about the protests that are taking place in Washington. This is yesterday. Thousands of people are outside protesting, and they aren't really talking about it on the news. It said on President's Day, demonstrators across the U.S. descended upon state capitol buildings and other locations to protest actions by President Donald Trump and billionaire Elon Musk, who are implementing significant changes to the federal government. In Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, thousands of people gathered at the Capitol reflecting pool chanting, "Where is Congress?" and urging members of Congress to do your job, despite nearly 40-degree temperatures and 20-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So they out there in the freezing cold protesting. The D.C. chapter of the 5051 5501 movement organized the rallies. One of its leaders, known as POTUS Black, urged the crowd of protesters to stand united in order to uphold the Constitution. To oppose tyranny is to stand behind democracy and remind our elected officials that we, the people, are who they're elected to serve, not themselves, Black said. The events over the past month have been built to exhaust us, to break our wills, but we are the American people. We will not break. Bear with me 1 second. Let me put the split screen up. Bear with me. Let me see. Boom. And can I reverse it? Okay, I can't reverse it. Let's do this. Nope. Now let's do that. Let's see, so I'm trying to get the right scene. No, that's not even good for neither one of us. All right. Okay. This is how we do this. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Put that on the big screen. Put me on the little screen. Okay. Let's go back to it now. All right. It says uh the nationwide protests were a part of the 5501 movement, which stands for 50 protests, 50 states, one movement. These protests were a response to what organizers describe as the anti-democratic and illegal actions of the Trump administration. Monday's demonstrations marked the group's second nationwide campaign following a series of executive orders signed by Trump. Both Musk and Trump have faced criticism for mass firings across several federal agencies, right? Calls for Congress to take action. Several attendees spoke with NPR, expressing their anger over Musk and Trump's actions and their fears about future executive orders. Their concerns range from Musk's team at the Department of Government Efficiency gaining access to Americans' personal data through the IRS and other federal agency records, to the firing of national park rangers. Suzanne, a resident of Maryland who requested that her last name be withheld because she fears retaliation against her family, told NPR she attended the rally in support of her husband, a federal employee with a financial regulatory agency. She mentioned their worries about him potentially being laid off among thousands of others. It put us in a pretty tenuous financial situation. Currently, his paychecks are going through, but we're looking to Plan B as an alternative on how to support our family, our children, she said. But it really has motivated him and his coworkers to stand united, to stand as a solid, solidified workers' force, right? And so, again, for a long time, securing a federal job in America meant that you made it. You got into the feds, you got one of them good, high paying federal jobs, guess what? You're safe. You don't have to worry about poverty. You don't have to worry about not knowing where your next check is going to come from and not knowing where your next meal is going to come from until Donald Trump got elected. And now Elon Musk is in there cutting up all these programs, firing all these federal workers. And what impact is that going to have? Not only on those workers who are laid off, but what impact is that going to have on the rest of the country? If you have a mass influx of workers into the unemployment line that are used to working federal jobs, that are used to working, secured jobs where they're comfortable in the house, in the office, get all the peace of mind and security that they need. What happens when those people are forced into the workforce? And right now, if you work a blue collar job in America, you know just how dire the situation is right now on some of these jobs. The economy has been slowing down. There's not a lot of goods and services being sold. A lot of companies were already laying off people, if not for sure putting a hiring freeze on things. Now with Donald Trump going through and cutting all these federal jobs, you're going to have 100, 200, 300,000 new workers into the into the workforce that don't have any experience, haven't worked a blue collar job a day in their life. What these people gonna do? And what is that gonna do to the jobs where people are already working and they, barely hanging on to a thread? I live in Memphis, Tennessee, and I remember when I moved to Memphis, Tennessee in 2019. The best blue collar jobs, and Memphis is a very much a warehouse city. It's a shipping city. The best blue collar jobs down here were paying about $17 an hour. That's the most you could get. If you were a forklift driver, if you had a CDL, you want to one of these warehouses, you want to work a truck, or you want to operate what's they call them, forklift or something like that. 17, $18 an hour was the most you were getting. COVID hit. These people became essential workers. They needed them to work. Amazon at the same time was moving into Memphis. There was a bidding war between Amazon and another major corporation down here. They ran the prices up to about maybe $21, $22 an hour. Right, over the years since COVID, they have been cost of living increases. So now in Memphis, if you got a good, decent paying blue collar job, you're making about $22, $23 an hour. But what happens when all these federal workers who were living comfortably working for the federal government now have to come and try to get a job working where you work? There's all these people clamoring for jobs just to be able to make a bill, or to get a check to hopefully keep a roof over their head. What's to stop these companies from saying, you know what, $23 is a lot, we'll hire you for 20, we'll hire you for 19. And then if that's too much, you got all of these so-called immigrants, illegals, people that's not undocumented. They in the workforce too. So here you are, used to work for the federal government. You used to making 80,000, 90,000 a year. This job is telling you, yeah, we'll pay you 60,000 a year, and you thinking, okay, that's something decent. But then here's this undocumented worker that'll do the same job for 40,000. What's gonna happen to all the people who can't get jobs now? What's gonna happen to all the people that's unemployed? Not only that, the same time that Donald Trump is firing all of these federal workers, Elon Musk is in the Social Security Administration. He's in the IRS. He's in the agencies that's responsible for sending the checks. How are people going to collect unemployment if Donald Trump is gutting the programs that pay the people who need to collect unemployment? Are they even thinking about that? What's up? What happens to the federal workers who are getting laid off right now, who can't file for unemployment? What guarantee is there? What promise is there being made by the government right now that, don't worry, you get laid off, we're going to make sure you get, where's the severance pay? What department of the government is in charge of severance pay for a federal worker getting fired out of nowhere? It's about to get really bad, if not already bad. This is going to be a very, very rough summer coming up. Not to mention, all of this is happening in the middle of tax time. All the people who were waiting on their taxes, what if that tax check never comes? All the car businesses that sell cars around this time of the year because people got their taxes, what if nobody gets their tax returns? What's going to happen to these car companies with all these extra cars on the lot? What about all the retail stores that have all of their deals around the spring and the summertime? What happens when nobody gets their taxes, so they're not going shopping? What happens to all of the places like Miami and Cancun and Fort Lauderdale and Myrtle Beach? And I'm just thinking all the places where black people go to gather around the holidays, Memorial Day for Blackity Week. What happens to all of those places when nobody comes to visit them because ain't nobody getting no money because there wasn't no tax returns? Like, these are things that people need to be seriously considering. And all while this is taking place, guess what? The cost of everything is still going to be going up because the value of the dollar is shot. All of this is going on in the government. It's really just a smokescreen for the real problem, which is that the US dollar is losing its value, and there's nothing that can be done to stave off the increase of prices on everything. You're just starting to see it with eggs, but it's going to continue to get worse. Not only that, Donald Trump is making cuts in very major departments within the government, like the health administration, health and uh, human health services, right? I forget the agency that RFK is in charge of, but that agency, the Department of Health, all of these agencies are being cut. They made cuts to the nuclear defense department, but they fired a lot of the people that's in charge of protecting and watching over the nuclear arsenal that is in the country. What happens? Like, there's so many ways that the country is being made vulnerable, and you have to see that it's happening on purpose. It's happening on purpose because when something happens, that is going to happen. They're going to say it's all Donald Trump and Elon Musk's fault. When in reality, these vulnerabilities were already present. The weaknesses in the government, was already there. The financial crisis that we find ourselves in was already on the horizon way before Donald Trump became president the first time. It's definitely in place now that he's the president this time around. But let's continue. All while there's the distraction that's going on with Elon Musk and all of these different government departments and all of these cuts that's being made while they're protesting that part. What's not being talked about is Donald Trump having all of these meetings with all these countries um, that are a part of the BRICS conglomerate, right? The BRICS conglomerate is a group of nations that gathered together years ago that said in the event that there's an economic collapse, we need to make sure that we are able to stand together and stand strong to stave off anything that may happen concerning, the US and the dollar, right? So this um what's the thing when they put in the newspaper? The headline of this video says Trump receives bad news after declaring the death of BRICS, right? So when Donald Trump started to put together these tariffs, he came out and said his plan is to end the BRICS agreement. It's death to BRICS is what he declared, right? Just to understand what BRICS is, let's go ahead and read this here. This is Wikipedia entry. This talks about the member states of BRICS. It says the original member states of BRICS, an international organization of world economies, consisted of Brazil, Russia, India, and China. South Africa formally joined in 2010 and attended the third BRICS summit. The organization expanded again in 2024 with Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates attending the 16th BRICS summit as official members. In January 2025, Indonesia joined the organization. Many other countries are partner states or have applied to join. Everybody understands. So, way back in 2008, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa got together and said, we need to band together to make sure that we can assure ourselves an economic stronghold in the event that the U.S. falls or that the U.S. decides they want to get out of hand with trade and how they dealing with us. We won't be so dependent on America. Here we are 20 something years later, we're about 18, 19 years later, and this BRICS group of nations continues to gather and get stronger. Well, if you pay attention over the last couple of weeks, Donald Trump has publicly spoke against or met with the leaders of all of these BRICS nations to broker deals. The only one I think he hasn't spoken on is Brazil. But we're going to cover it in a second. He's met with Vladimir Putin of Russia, had conversations on the phone. He's openly threatened China with 100% tariffs and increased his his threats against them. He threatened South Africa, threatened to go into South Africa with tanks and bombs, and I don't even know what the issue was that he had with South Africa, but he's threatened South Africa. And he's also met with the leader, the foreign minister of India. Had the Indian prime minister up there. They sitting there talking, having a wonderful time. All of this is taking place because Donald Trump is attempting to make backdoor deals to stop these countries from dropping off of using the dollar. Right? What America is doing with all the increases in drilling and fracking that they want to do to get to the oil, America needs to reestablish itself as a producer on the world stage in terms of producing goods and services and natural resources that other countries need. You understand? With the United Arab Emirates and Ethiopia and Egypt and Iran joining BRICS, they have an opportunity to be able to cut America out of the oil trade, cut America out of being a nation that is needed for its natural resources. And America is scrambling at a mad dash to be able to say to the rest of the world, you still need us. We're still valuable. All right, so let me go ahead and play the clip from this video about Donald Trump receiving bad news after he declared the death of BRICS. All right. India, Russia, China, Brazil, South Africa, Trump. Next mega summit announced by Trump's 100% tariff war. Not dead, but BRICS expands despite Trump threats. Days after Trump's threat of 100% tariffs, BRICS drops the U.S. president. Brazilian Foreign Minister Mauro Vieira announced BRICS coming to the hill of the last 50% in Brazil. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa are core members of BRICS. 5 new members joined recently. This footage is from Russia in October. Vieira said the summit will see leaders from 24 and associate member nations. The summit will focus on cooperation, development, and better living conditions. All right, that's just a video that's just announcing, that the BRICS are still coming together, and they still gonna be doing their thing. You understand? The point of it is, this is a major threat to America and America's economic sustainability on the world stage. These nations coming together and attempting to be able to block the dollar out, it's dangerous. It's threatening. Everybody understands, and it could be a problem for America. It could be a problem if these nations come together and they no longer need the power of the dollar. Not only are they going to be able to sustain themselves through this economic crisis, but the dollar is extremely weakened, which is why you see the prices of everything rising. And so, with this being said, what is Donald Trump trying to do to stave it off? What is he trying to do to avoid BRICS dismissing the U.S. dollar? Let me see something. I had an article pulled up, but I think Bloomberg want me to pay to read the damn article. I am not about to pay to read this article, Bloomberg. What are you doing? Bruh, they making me register to read the job. Okay, hold on. Give me a second, y'all. One bonus article. And out of pocket. Bro, I don't want to have to give you the code. Bear with me because they making me give them a code. Okay, hold on. See something. Later. Bro, what is this? Bro. Okay, now I can share the tab. Okay. Here we go. It says Trump, Putin teams end Ukraine talks with no date yet for summit. Right. And if you look at the news, there's a lot being spoken concerning Donald Trump and his stance that he's taken with Ukraine. There's also a lot being said about Donald Trump and the stance that he's taken against Palestine and siding with Israel. All of this is economics. All of this is, America capitulating and giving way to whoever's going to promise them that they will support them financially or not turn their back on America when it comes to finances. America values the money that the so-called Jewish people have to offer than they do the people in the Middle East. So he's going to side with Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel and taking over Palestine. He values much more Russia and Vladimir Putin and what a deal between them can do for America economically than he does the Ukrainians, which is why Ukraine is getting cut out of the deal. But let's go ahead and read this here. It says, top U.S. and Russian officials held talks in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday to discuss how to end the war in Ukraine without anyone from Kiev involved, fueling concerns about a rapid push for a deal by the two powers that may leave Europe on the sidelines. A senior Russian official said after the meeting, which lasted roughly 4 hours, that no date had been set for President Vladimir Putin and U.S. counterpart Donald Trump to meet. He added that such a summit was unlikely to be next week, which Bloomberg reported was a possibility. It's hard to say yet. We're getting closer, but there was a conversation, Kremlin foreign policy aide Yuri Ushakov said about the two sides' positions, according to the state-run TASS news agency. The talks in Riyadh followed Trump's landmark phone call with Putin last week, in which he reversed key U.S. positions on the conflict. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned his country won't recognize any agreements about us without us. White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio sat opposite Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Ushakov. Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan was also there. The meeting was a way to determine if the Russians perhaps are serious and if they're on the same page with the U.S. when it comes to ending the war in Ukraine, according to State Department spokeswoman Tammy Bruce, who briefed reporters traveling with Rubio. The main thing is to begin a real normalization of relations between us and Washington, Ushakov told Russian state television on his arrival in Riyadh late Monday. The meeting will focus on preparation for possible negotiations over a settlement in Ukraine and for a meeting between the two presidents, he added. The head of Russia's sovereign wealth fund, Kirill Dimitrov, tasked with dealing with economic issues at the talks, said U.S. firms have lost $300 billion from quitting the Russian market since the war started. We know there are U.S. oil companies which would like to return to Russia, Dmitriev said. That's what this is about. You understand? During the days of the Biden administration, them siding with Ukraine and helping to support Ukraine through this war, big business interests in America have been losing money, thousands of dollars, according to what this reports. I mean, billions of dollars, according to what the Russians said. And he said, I know that these businesses would like to get back to getting some of this Russian money, and they would. Which is why Donald Trump is going to say and do whatever it takes to get Russia back on one accord. This is about money. This is about power. You understand? And America failing or losing the economic battle, drastic things have to be done. See, but here's the problem. If you look at world history, you look at the major empires and the major countries that have, held power on the earth, you cannot fight a war on two fronts. And what America is doing right now is it's setting itself up by trying to reposition itself to have a better economic stance for the rest of the world. They're weakening their stance at home. And all of these cuts and all of these jobs being lost, it's creating a lot of dissension within the people here. And while America is trying to save its face on the world stage, they're generating a lot of angst and a lot of frustration, and things are building to a fever pitch here at home. Donald Trump and the administration, like, they keep talking about Trump as though he's the one making all these decisions. Trump and Musk are really just figureheads. They're not the ones that are actually in charge making all the decisions. This was a planned, you know, thing that's going on. All of this is somebody big is behind the scenes pulling the strings and making things to go in the directions that they're going in. Trump has power, but he's not smart. He's not intelligent. He doesn't really understand how all these moving parts work, which is why, in order to, while he's trying to satisfy one side, he's creating 50 other problems. He's got this solution to cover this one thing, which opens up a floodgate of 50 more issues around the other corner. And the path that they're on right now is not sustainable. The moves that they're making right now and the moves they're making right now, and the changes that they're doing in the government, it can only make things worse here in the country. If you thought in the last 5 years we had it bad with homegrown terrorists or with mass shooting events or mass casualty events. We thought we had it bad with, dissension with the government and people being upset and being, angry about what the government was doing. If y'all thought that January 6th was an insurrection, you have not seen nothing yet. And right now, Donald Trump bought a lot of favor with freeing all them people on January 6th. He's buying a lot of favor right now with a lot of these government cuts. You go look at some of these Fox News videos, go in the comments, you're gonna see all types of conservative people saying they happy. Yay, they celebrating until their social security checks don't come through. Till they lose their job and there is no unemployment. A lot of these country boys and these farms, they farm subsidies get cut when USA get cut. It's only a matter of time. Give it about 2-3 months before people start to really feel the crunch, before things get to a fever pitch. And then the battle is not going to be overseas with Russia. The battle is not going to be against BRICS. The battle is going to be here at home against all these people who refuse to, not be heard. And you got to understand the nature of the people that make up this country. America is a country that was built on war, built on, protests, built on violent protests that overthrew the government. And this generation hasn't seen that type of mobilization yet, but it's coming. And when it comes, where are we going to stand, black people? Where are we going to stand, Hispanic and Native Indian people? You gonna choose the side of your oppressor to fight against their government? Then what? The people who are disenfranchised getting power. Then what they're gonna do? You think they're gonna celebrate you? They're gonna liberate you? They're gonna share the wealth with you? Nah, they're gonna replace these rich people. Then they'll become the rich people. And in the midst of it, we'll always still be the poor. We'll be the downtrodden. They'll use us to spark their revolution and then throw us away like they have done in every war that this country has ever fought. Everything in this nation has been built on the backs of our people, but yet we have not benefited anything from it because none of it was ever intended for us to benefit. And we have to see that what's happening right now, the conditions and the circumstances that are unfolding, presenting a perfect opportunity for us to come together. Perfect opportunity for us to gather together and be the people that the Most High called us to be, and to establish our own. We're gonna learn very soon. If COVID didn't teach us anything, we're gonna learn very soon that we all we got. Clearly, you can't depend on the government. Clearly, there's no love for you in the White House. There's no, consideration for you and all of these cuts and all of these deals being made. I said in the last video, they are planning mass deportation of our people out of New York City. That's the only reason that's the only way that it can make sense that Donald Trump was really willing to risk the public shame and embarrassment that he risked by pardoning Eric Adams. And if he's willing to go to those lengths in that city, well, you see what's happening with Social Security right now. You see what's happening with the IRS. You're going to see what's happening with the payment system for all of these federal workers that are becoming unemployed. And then we'll see where it goes. One more article before I get up out of here, right? This is from Newsweek. It's the Donald Trump tariffs that he made once he became president. It says President Donald. Hold on, let me see something. Go ahead and share the screen. Nope. Hold on. Where is the Newsweek? Oh, okay, here you go. So this is on Newsweek. It says President Donald Trump has threatened BRICS countries, warning them against replacing the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency and telling them, go find another sucker nation. The Newsweek has contacted the White House and the foreign ministries of major BRICS members, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, for comment via email. Why it matters. BRICS countries' continued use of the dollar plays a major role in it being the world's reserve currency and widely used for international trade. If the bloc decides to step away from the dollar, it could decrease the U.S.'s financial dominance. Trump's America First approach to trade and foreign policy has included tariff threats to several economic partners, namely Canada and Mexico, but also BRICS member China. On Thursday, Trump wrote on Truth Social the idea that the BRICS countries are trying to move away from the dollar while we stand by and watch is over. We are going to require a commitment from these seemingly hostile countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty US dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs and should expect to say goodbye to selling into the wonderful US economy. They can go find another sucker nation. There is no chance that BRICS will replace the US dollar in international trade or anywhere else, and any country that tries should say hello to tariffs and goodbye to America. Everybody, now this threat is a major threat if there's money in America for the American people to spend. But if there's no money for the American people to spend, why would the BRICS countries even care? That's what's happening right now. Musk is in there running roughshod through the budget, through the government, cutting all these workers. All these people that's getting fired are not going to have any money to buy anything. Which, if nobody's buying anything in America, why should China keep shipping PlayStations and dolls and clothes and everything they ship over here? If nobody's buying anything, we'll find other people to trade with. They are brokering on the complete economic collapse of the US dollar. And if that happens, it needs to be, you know, they're creating instability so that when the instability that is looming comes to pass, it won't be said the government failed, or the blame won't be completely on the powers that be. The blame will be on Donald Trump and Elon Musk firing all the federal workers. Like, this thing that's happening financially in this country has been inevitable for many, many years. They just now have come to finding a solution for how to explain or who to blame when the bottom falls out. They wouldn't allow it to be said that it was the Wall Street bankers. They wouldn't allow it to be said that it was all of these corporations that got rich and wealthy and paid no taxes. They had to find somebody else to blame, someone else to be the boogeyman, and that's what Trump and Musk are. But right now, everything that's taking place financially in this country was already on the horizon 10, 20, 30 years ago, and they knew it was all going to come to a head. They just have now decided that this is the time, and these are the people in charge that they are going to have everyone to blame for the bottom falling out. But this ripple is starting. It's been happening in other countries. You go back to 2019. In Greece, the economy failed. In Venezuela, the economy failed. There were protests all across many countries. And then COVID hit, and everybody forgot about it. Well, now it's coming to America. These protests that you're seeing right now is just the beginning. It's only going to get worse as more and more people get laid off, and there's less and less money to go around, and then everything, the prices of everything skyrockets. Everybody understands. Keep reading. BRICS owns the new development bank, which has invested US $30 billion in infrastructure development projects in member states and other developing economies. All 5 initial BRICS nations are members of the G20 along the United States. BRICS leaders have called for a reformed international financial system to facilitate trade in local currencies. However, BRICS is not discussing the creation of a common BRICS currency. Instead, South Africa supports the increased use of national currencies in international trade and financial transactions to mitigate the impact of foreign exchange fluctuations rather than focusing on de-dollarization. The strengthening of correspondent banking networks and the development of infrastructure for settlements in national currencies could further this aim. Enhancing BRICS payment systems to accommodate trading in local currencies does not imply de-dollarization. In November, Trump posted an almost identical message. The idea that the BRICS countries are trying to move away from the dollar while we stand by and watch is over. We require a commitment from these countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty US dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs and should expect to say goodbye to selling into the wonderful US economy. They can go find another sucker. There is no chance that the BRICS will replace the US dollar in international trade, and any country that tries should wave goodbye to America. Everybody understands? So while they're tearing apart the government, right? While they're tearing apart the infrastructure, eroding the middle class with all of the layoffs of these federal workers and these federal jobs, You have to know that on the larger world stage, what America is trying to do is put itself in a position not to be dismissed by these other countries. America does not want to be in a position where they're no longer viewed as an economically viable partner by these other nations. But it's the saving of the U.S. dollar. The time for that has passed. The ability for America to stop an economic collapse passed a long time ago. We are in the midst of an economic collapse. The days of the Great Depression are swinging back around, and you're going to see a further eroding of the middle class. Only thing that these rich and powerful people are trying to do is to ensure that they remain rich and powerful. And so Donald Trump and Elon Musk don't mind being the faces of the fall of America. The question is, what are we going to do? Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, seeing that the writing is on the wall, seeing that the bottom is falling out, seeing that you can't depend on this government or the people in charge to look out for you and your best interests. When are we going to gather together? When are we going to become the people that the Lord called us to be, so that we can know what answers there are and what solutions there are for us surviving through these times? For a long time, we've lived comfortably in America. I guess in this generation, we've lived comfortably. But the time is coming soon where we're going to have to go back to, living 2, 3 families to a household. Ain't going to be enough money to pay, for you and your wife and your kids to live by yourself in a house. You had to go and, you move your brother in and his family, and you had your sister and her kids come and live in the basement. We're going to get back to those days where we knew how to survive. We knew how to depend on one another and really, strive together. And as we come back together and we have to depend on one another, we're going to need rules and laws and a method of, mode of I'm looking for a method of operations on how we deal with one another. Code of conduct. That's what I'm looking for. Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian people, we are going to need a code of conduct on how we deal with one another, how we rebuild our communities, how we reestablish our neighborhoods. We're going to have to depend on one another. We're going to have to feed one another and clothe one another and share our resources. How do we, stop from the degenerates among us from taking advantage of that? How do we stop from the unalivers and the predators from preying on the weak? Those are the answers that exist in the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge under Commanding General Yohana. You don't know what are we going to do, how are we going to survive, but what should we do seeing that the bottom is falling out? Find the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge location near your city. Go to Google and ISUPK and in your city. If you can't find nothing for your city, ISUPK in your state. Can't find an ISUPK in the nearest big city to you. You find that page and you go online and you check those videos out and you get the number and call those brothers and say, hey, I'm in this city and I'm not sure what I want to do. I saw a video where a brother was talking about the collapse of America and the fall of the dollar and how, the government is eroding the middle class. What should I do? And that brother will have answers for you, will have instructions for you. If you're a sister out there and you see the signs of the times and you see what's coming and you're not sure what to do, you don't have a husband, you don't have a man, you don't have any men in your life that's going to protect you and that you trust to be there for you, find an ISUPK. And the time for it is now. Because as they continue to purge this government and cut this funding for this and that, you best believe the censorship is going to increase. They already censoring the government. These government workers can't make posts about what's going on. These different governmental departments, the people that aren't fired, you think they're not going to do anything to keep their job? Come on, man. How do you create a loyal government? How do you create a government that's full of loyalists that'll do anything that you tell them to do? Well, you just fire half of their buddies and let them see their buddies who get fired struggle for the next 6 months while they get to keep their job. You guess what? They'll do whatever the hell Donald Trump tell them to do because they don't want to end up like them, their friends who got fired 6 months ago. And in my next class, I'm going to go and do a history lesson on the breaking down of Germany prior to World War II and the conditions that existed in that country that led to the rise of Hitler and the Nazi Party. It's the same thing that's going on right now with Donald Trump. As you want to know, you want to know what's going to be the next great federal job that you could have in America. The next great federal job is going to be in the military. All these federal workers getting fired and getting laid off. You want to know what government department is going to increase in hiring immediately? The military. You in college, you in high school, there ain't no jobs available. You're seeing your father get laid off, your mother get laid off, and the family's poor, and they don't know what they're gonna do for their next meal. Come and join the military, son. Go make your family proud. Be all that you can be in the army. You can be a army of one in the Marines. Go into that Navy. Go into that Space Force. That's gonna be the next great American middle class occupation in the military. And all the anger and the frustration you have from being poor, you go take it out on those enemies. So that's what's coming. I appreciate y'all for joining me, man. If y'all could like and share on Angry Black Man Media. Check out the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge in the city near you. Get in contact with the brothers and sisters. Doing these streams, man, to try and take what's happening in the news and present the perspective that's necessary and important for our people. This is news without a political spin. Just reading between the lines, telling you what's going on, and praying that the Most High will open your eyes for you to be able to see. And with that, shalom. I'll see y'all next.